nothing there worth fighting for. I just need to know if one thing is true. Do you still love me like you used to do? What if they alright? Baby, can we still shine? Tell me that we'll be fine. Are we still alive? What if they alright? Baby, can we still shine? Tell me that we'll be fine. Are we still alive?
Well, here we are, season 2, as I clear my throat, of how love can last forever after all. And the day is here. You guys are going to meet the couple that I would say has been most affected by season 1, and we're going to hear their story. We've got Elliott and Sydney here, and I've got my beautiful wife with me again. Aren't you glad to see you got her back on camera, guys? My wife, she's getting a little bit more comfortable on camera. Are you?
Yeah, just a tad.
Just a tad, kind of thing. But today is really, really fun because this is a couple that I kind of told you guys about that reached out to me and wanted to do some marriage or relationship coaching kind of thing. And as a result, they called for me to come up to Baltimore, and we had a good time finalizing their nuptials, if you will, kind of thing. But we're going to talk about their journey in hopes that will help you guys see that love really can last forever from the start. Last season, we got a chance to see how all these couples had kind of gotten to their place, some 10, some 20, some 30 years. But now we're going to have a couple of examples where we have some people right from the start. And we're going to hear about their little after-alls kind of thing and see how love showed up in that. So with that, I'm going to do this. Sydney and Elliott, I want you guys to just to introduce yourselves individually, who you are, where you come from, kind of thing, just to kind of let people know who you are and what's going on. We'll start with you, Sydney.
Yeah, I'm Sydney Franklin. Newly used to be Sydney Jones. I've lived a couple places, but I was mainly living in DC and have a 4-year-old. And he said, I need a dad at 3, very plainly. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm looking now. I wasn't planning on it. So then I started dating and very quickly met Elliott.
Okay, so let me make sure everybody heard what you just said. You've got a 4-year-old son who came to you one day and said, I need a dad.
It wasn't one day. It's really every day since he could talk.
Okay. He said you that. So are you saying that was kind of like the thing that jump-started you trying to look for a mate?
Yeah, that was the only thing. I was very happy with not dating and just like dating, but not seriously, until I felt like I was ready. And then when his words are, I need a daddy, I want a dad, when are you getting one? That one looks cool, you want him? Like, he's 3 saying this. And so, in realizing how to formulate the idea of family in his head, I said, okay, fine, I'll look for one.
Okay.
The one that I like.
Tell me what you think, Elise, because you're going to be the crowd out there.
No, that's interesting. I'm just going to ponder on that because that's interesting.
He knows what he wants, so it's not like we couldn't have the conversation of like, how that works, right? Like he knew what he was saying.
Yeah, but what I love about it is if we were to what's it called, blindly survey single parent women, I wonder how many of them would honestly say, I need somebody to father my child.
I don't know. Because I think to plainly say it sounds a little thirsty. It's like, I need somebody to be a dad for my kid. But I didn't care. Because I was also just like, if I don't like you, bye. Right? So it's like, if I like you, cool. But if not, I don't need you. So
yeah. So it came through in our sessions kind of thing. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that you were going to come out with it so quickly like that kind of thing. Because that's interesting thing because like I say, from a guy's perspective, Elliott, how soon did you know? Well, Elliott, tell us a little about yourself and let's pull you into the conversation.
My name's Elliott. Last name Franklin. Yeah. I'm from Maryland, which is where we are now. I've been around a little bit. I was in the Army. I've been to a few different places. By the time I got back here, I was mostly trying to get things stabilized. So I just come from Florida. I was just trying to basically get my finances and everything, stabilized and in order. So I wasn't really dating or anything like that. And then I kind of started dating sporadically or trying to, right? Didn't have much success, right? I tried different apps, tried different strategies. I guess you could try to say sporadically, it wasn't like a constant thing. But it wasn't really very successful. So I would try for a little while and I was like, whatever, right? And I'd do something else. And then a little bit before I met Sydney, I was like, let me give this another shot. Initially, I actually was surprised, but I did get a couple of messages, right? But most of them were too far. And, they were, it just wasn't a good fit, really. And Sydney also messaged me, right? After I took a look at our profile and I read through and everything, I was like, okay, I'll message this person. Let's see what this person's about, right?
Wow. So I want to ask this one question, then we're going to turn it over to Elisa to finish. But how soon in the process did you know that her initial desire to kind of get out there was because her son wanted a dad? Did you know that early? When did you know that?
If I remember correctly, she did pretty early. It was pretty early. It was almost immediate, if I remember correctly. I think the first real conversation we had, in fact, I think when we were texting, she was like, you need to be willing to adopt my son, basically. On the app.
She
right?
was, there it is.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good. I mean, there's no questions or you got to.
I think that was before we even actually talked on the phone. She was.
I don't remember saying it that early.
Oh,
but
I remember. I thought it was through a text message initially.
It can be very blunt. So I think even outside of dating, I'm just like, this is what it is. So
That's what it is, yeah.
A little more there.
Yeah. So, and a lot of things we're on the same page about when it comes to relationships, right? So we both wanted serious relationships, we both wanted long-term relationships, and we both wanted to end up married, right? So if I'm going to date someone and my end goal is marriage and they have a child, then it's not something that's unreasonable to me, to adopt someone or something like that,
Yeah, listen, I'm just going to ask the obvious question from me. Do you guys mind telling your ages, how old you are?
Oh, I don't care.
No,
Okay.
I'm 9.
Somebody just reminded me the other day because I stopped counting after a while. I'm 38. 38. Yes.
You're 38. And
I was thinking the other day, I was like, I'm 37. No, 38.
So you're 38, and Sydney, you are
29.
29. So now, are you asking the question I'm asking? How did you not get married before 38 years old, Elliott? With you look like you're ready, and your kids are great. What do you think? Why do you think it was that you hadn't gotten married sooner?
Girl, I was like, oh, she's cute, right? I want to talk to her, type of thing. But the thing is, if I go out, I remember specifically the first few times trying to talk to a girl, oh hey, I like you, right? They'd be like, ew, right? So eventually, you get that rejection thing, right? So it's kind of how do I feel like dealing with that? It's not really that this is not a necessity in my life to where I can't survive without it. I'd rather not go through the hassle, basically, right? So it's if something if there was a situation where you just happen to click with someone and there's a potential budding or relationship there or something like that, then that's cool, right? But that still didn't necessarily mean I was going to pursue it for various reasons. So basically, it's I just mostly didn't feel like dealing with the whole hassle of pursuing, trying to get into relationships.
That's what I got.
Stuff,
When I met Elliott, he was like, you're cool. I'll stick around. If this doesn't work, though, okay. That was his attitude.
Yeah.
Okay, so it leads me right into Sid. Tell me a little bit about your dating experience before you met Elliott.
It was interesting. I would say it was a range of like a more of a late starter with dating, not really until college, and then just kind of like messing around as one does, right? And then I got into a serious relationship that I thought was going somewhere. It turned out to be very horrible. But I got a lovely kid out of it. And from there, it's like, okay, I definitely know what I don't want. And I thought I knew what I did want, but does that exist? Who knows? Because now I'm living life and I can just figure out what I want. And so I never dated on apps during that period. It's like if I would meet someone, cool. If not, okay, that's fine. But then when I decided I wanted to definitely on purpose date, which I hadn't done before, that was the first time I tried apps.
Oh wow.
I looked up like podcasts and YouTube, how to date on apps. But I found a few good resources that I thought really broke it down to just the bare basics and like common sense of if a person is confusing or acts like they don't like you, believe that and don't try to convince the situation.
Yeah.
So unlike Elliott's like long saga of oh no, they don't want me and like and app dating, it's like because MDC, so many people are like career focused that they don't settle down till really late. I'm like, I already have a kid, so it's like it's one where people will, I think, be more serious.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, please.
Just to clarify something. I will say that there's been plenty of instances where I've like completely ignored what do you call it? People coming on to me or whatever. Like
on the apps.
Where it could have been something I was like, no thanks. Right?
Oh no, he was
so,
you're talking about face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, so yeah. So like I mean like what I'm saying is like I've been single mostly by choice. Yeah. So I mean like
and not wanting to deal
there's been some situations where it's just like this person is definitely attracted to me and would like to pursue something, but I'm just like, no thanks for various reasons. But it's like, or I'll just completely ignore the, it's just
the
like,
signs. Yeah, and that's why I asked the question, because the image out there is that guys have all these options, and there's so much to choose from that if you wanted to get married, people would get married. But what I'm hearing you saying is, I had the choices, and I had some interactions, but I knew those interactions weren't a good fit for me. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's close. Yeah. In some cases, that was the case. Yeah.
And so once again,
I have a question because
now I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Did you guys have a list in regards to? I know you were on the app, but did you? If you can give me the first 3 things that was important to you on what the qualifications. That's
what happens when you're on these apps.
What was
people
the top,
get these lists? Yeah,
the top 3? I mean, if you go 5, but just so we can. So I'll start with you. Go ahead.
I'm sure she's got like a whole list, right? There's a few things I was looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted someone who was Christian or had like a Christian set of morals and values, right? At least. I wanted to find someone who was kind-hearted. This is outside of the typical superficial stuff, right?
You gotta look good, yeah. Come on now, you gotta look good.
So yeah. I mean that's a given, right? You gotta be attracted to the person,
yeah.
Especially if you're doing it on apps, yeah.
Yeah.
But so someone with good morals and values that lined up with mine, right? Someone who I've always been like kind-heartedness, right? Yeah. Someone who, and this is not something you would necessarily get from the app. You had to get to know them, but like someone who I got a sense of like loyalty from, or and another way to say it would be like someone who isn't just going to jump ship if they hit a stormy, hit a patch of rough waters or something, because a lot of people will do that these days. Like, oh, there's hardship. Let me jump out of this boat. Like, but the sunshine right on the other side of this. It's like, get waiting here for like, 10 more minutes and then we'll be like smooth sailing. You know what I mean?
Right,
Right.
right.
Stuff like that. If I had to pick just like 3, that would be it.
That was good. Okay.
Sydney, how about you?
I would like to say first that when I heard what Elliott was looking for, I thought his list was too short. Because mine is much longer than that. I was like, okay.
I still haven't finished it. Just so that you know, she had over 200 questions.
Oh,
Over
okay.
200
Well,
questions.
those okay.
So tell us how you got to the, if like Elise said, the top 25.
Short. I feel like as girls, the world and our parents give us these super high things of like, oh, if you're like smart and maybe if you're pretty, but someone will think you're pretty, like you can have whatever you want. And so from an early age, you're like this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And I got all A's so I can get it, right? And I wasn't specifically that entitled, but it was always that, oh, I can have a long list. That's possible. And if it doesn't, I know independence too. Like not in an unhealthy way, but I know what I like.
Mhm.
So I tried to take out all the unnecessary stuff. But my first one is I have to be attracted to you because without that, we're just friends forever. And then after that, I tried to just go into character things like
Okay.
honest, loyal, knows who they are, is mature, emotionally sound, those types of things. So really when I made my profile, I tried to be as polarizing as possible. So I'm like, I want someone to look at this and go, oh, she's too serious, right? Because then I don't have to waste my time on those people. So they could just X me out because I'm doing too much. And then whoever responds to that, I'm like, oh, okay, you at least know what some of these words mean. So that was the starting point. But yes, my list was very long. But I would like to say, I think they were long with substantial things.
Okay.
Like just listening to other people's love stories or even other podcasts about relationships, if they picked out something they learned or thought was important when looking for a person, or even having a healthy marriage after the fact. If I heard something that stuck out, I would add it to the list. And it would be either, what do I either ask him if he can't lie about it, or if he doesn't really know I'm digging for something, or it would be something I would just think in my head, like, does he tick this without knowing he ticks it? So I think Elliott knew of maybe a fifth of what the questions were, and the others I just silently said paycheck.
Only ones that I knew about were the ones who said, I have a list of questions. That happened one time. We were playing Uno, I think it was Uno, and we were on a split picnic thing. She's like, I got a list of questions. And she told me like she's got like however many it was. So she just started reading some of them off, like, do you, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
whatever.
no, I didn't tell him how many it was.
No,
I said it's a
remember
long
how-
list. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, if you scroll, does it keep going? And I was like, well, scroll.
So anyway, she read off some of those, but those were the only ones that I blatantly, like they were just clearly from this list that she was talking about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I guess they were kind of incognito. You know?
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. That was good. Okay, so I'm just going to go right into the first question. So, who contacted Pastor Cal?
Oh, I did.
Okay, and then why?
Why? At that point, we were pretty serious, and we were already talking about what does it mean to be married.
Mhm.
And if we're going to be together, it's because both of us know and are having the discussion. This is the next step. So if I'm still talking to you tomorrow, it's because I'm expecting this eventually and every day after that. So like, what can we talk about to really get to there and know what we're doing as much as we can? So we had talked about being in some type of counseling.
Okay.
We weren't engaged yet, but it's like, why wait until then kind of thing. So if we get to something where maybe we shouldn't be engaged, at least we know sooner rather than later, because I don't have time.
Gotcha. And
Kind
so,
of thing.
and Elliott, you were good with it.
Yeah, because realistically, like when you get into relationships or whatever it is, there's always something that you might miss, right? Maybe you might be a person who becomes infatuated easily and kind of lets things slide. I wouldn't say it's necessarily me, but I'm not saying that it couldn't happen to me. You know what I mean? So I figure, like, having another perspective, kind of chime in, or
Yeah.
maybe they'll see something that neither one of us saw that might be a red flag that we need to work on beforehand or something like that.
Yeah.
But that would be it's just not, there's nothing that I objected to. I thought it was a good move.
Mm-hmm. I will say though, I guess a major reason was because I didn't want to introduce Lion until I knew the person was definitely going to be there, because he is so socially aware and smart.
Yeah.
But I just want to create here's a relationship that we have to break off later.
Right.
So if you have to know Lion before we're engaged, but Lion can't know you until you're here forever, something in between has to be figured out.
Yeah, that's important. So, were there any fears in regards to contacting Pastor Cal? Because this is really kind of unique and kind of strange. I mean, if you saw the podcast, what did you see? I mean, did you see,
just in terms of putting the timeline together?
Right.
How long had you guys been talking to each other before you reached out to me?
Oh, that's a silly question. I'm not too good with tracking moments of time.
Okay.
Like that.
We met in August.
Okay. What year?
Of 2021.
20. Okay.
And I feel like, was it in the summer?
Yeah, I would have to look at the dates in terms
Okay,
of.
so it was
It was really quick.
Okay.
So then
we did counseling, however long that was, 5 weeks? And maybe it was a month before that I contacted you, but we got married a week after, basically a month after counseling. So maybe somewhere in the summer.
Yeah. So but let me ask you this, because I know that you really made a project out of this seeking a mate kind of thing. And so one of the things that I was impressed with you, Sydney, is that a lot of the references that you would use in terms of people that you felt were speaking to you, I really did agree with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then my question is, what made you reach out specifically to me?
Yes, I watched the podcast Dear Future Wifey, and I think that's just a really prolific show for several reasons. And I guess there had been other people who could have done counseling, but they never fully resonated, partly because some of them are single, which to me tells me nothing that you can offer me. And then the rest, I don't know, some of them just seem like they're still figuring it out. Not to imply that you aren't, because you're human, but you at least had an end goal, an overarching statement that made sense biblically and just in common sense. So
Okay.
you seem like you like each other, and it's not just overheated passion,
Yeah, wait till the cameras go off. We wait till the cameras go off. Okay, so good. So now I'll ask Elliott in a second, but Sydney, is there anything specifically that you remember from the Dear Wafi podcast that was said that kind of perked your ears up? Was there anything?
It perked my ears that you had a point of view that I thought was initially a little fairy tale, because I would say the idea these days is that you should date around and there should be only one person. And if suddenly you're not happy one day, then divorce, instead of love being a constructed choice that you have feelings around, but you do anyways. And there's a purpose with that's beyond just some goal or amount of something that can change, or it's just based on something worldly. And then some of what you said just really, I thought Elliott would relate to, because he's old-fashioned in a sense, but also super romantic in this really loyalistic way that doesn't happen often. I was you two would get along.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
Well, only thing I just heard is she called me old, but we'll move on from that. I'm teasing.
Well, let me ask. But did you, Ellie? Did you see the podcast, or he saw it too?
I don't know.
Did you see
I
it?
didn't see the podcast. I saw. I think it was on your channel when we basically were talking about how you guys got together, your love story.
Okay.
That's the one that I saw.
Okay.
Didn't watch everything. I watched that.
Yeah, he didn't watch it.
And I might have watched maybe another video after that.
Okay.
And
So
Okay.
from the podcast, from our podcast, the How Love Can Last Forever, was there anything that stood out for you that you heard in the podcast, Elliott?
I don't really
Let's put them on
remember
the
anything specific like a.
And that's okay if you don't. I just, it's just.
I
That's okay.
didn't think that you were saying anything that was disingenuous. I know that your foundation was biblical. So I figured I'll give him a shot. Yeah, I didn't see anything that was like, oh, we're not going to this guy.
Yeah, and honestly, that's exactly what I wanted to get clarity on. Was there a sense of authenticity? Because I will tell you, since doing the podcast and having to kind of retell our story, I'll be honest with you. At 57 years old, when I tell the story, it's kind of like, wow, was that real? And I lived it. And so I can imagine for you guys, you're thinking, and so it was always interesting to me that the authenticity does come through, kind of thing. So I'll tell you what I remember about first receiving your email, or I don't know how it came, but the communication is, Sydney, just like you talked about being serious in terms of your interaction with Elliott, like I felt the same thing in your interaction with me. Like there was stuff that I would usually have to dig for that you just straight out came and told me, like just straight out. And I was like, honestly, I thought, and is this for real? Like it was like, but like when you talked about how you had the son, you talked about how you guys were planning to move in together. You talked about, relationship coaching, ongoing, kind of thing. You talked about how we're not engaged, kind of thing. And like, typically that's stuff that I'd have to dig for.
Yeah.
Like, stuff that, you said you were both Christian, kind of thing. You shared about how you guys both felt about trying to walk a Christian life and your experiences and how they varied. And typically I'd have to spend 1-2 sessions just finding that stuff out. I didn't have to do none of that. It was all right there. And so that I was kind of like, okay, okay. And so the other thing that was impressive to me is I think I did a first quick meeting with you guys, and you guys shared with where you are, and I said, well, you guys know I'm a Christian life coach, so I'm going to be working from the Bible. If you guys are good with that, I'm good with that. And you guys are both yes. But then the next big test was this. I said, I'm going to send you guys questionnaires. I need you to get it back by such and such date. And they were both back on time. And I was like, okay, these two might really be serious. These two might really, really, really be serious. And so that was just really impressive to me because so often I think people do genuinely want relationships, right? But as soon as you start talking about the work of it, it's like, okay, I don't know if I signed up for all of that. Kind of thing. And so I want to say that to lead into this, because for what I do when I do my foundational relationship coaching for people who are wanting to get married, is I have a 5-session process where I do first one on the purpose of marriage, so that everybody understands what I believe is the purpose of marriage from the biblical standpoint. Then I do individual sessions with each person so that they can kind of share where they are or what they think as a result of hearing that purpose. And then I do another session on covenant, and then I do another session on submission. And so that's the way I set that up. And so let's start with kind of looking at the and I know it's been a while ago, but when we talk about the purpose of marriage, was there anything that stood out for you guys that you can remember we talked about around the purpose of marriage?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I always thought that saying the purpose of marriage was to have a purpose. Weird. And what's the word? Like transactional. I get that you can have a purpose for or through God, but I also think that through life people change. And so it's like people are having these purposes and they change. That just leaves too much room for mess, right? And then there's the whole thing, well, if you're traditional, men have the purpose and women support it. And men change, women change, the purpose still would change. You then also still have mess and just confusion and opinions. And how does that work when one person's dying mother is in one state, but oh, the job is in here? And I'm like, that just sounds too complicated, right? And so for you to say that it's to heal each other's heart, that implies that one, you have to trust each other enough to show your heart. And then through that, it implies that you'll just figure everything out as it comes, but to heal each other. So it just made more sense that it left room for us to be people and then to grow together, knowing we're going to change regardless because we're supposed to change. So that stuck out, I guess, because it served what I wanted to hear in my head anyways.
See, at least this is why I would come out of those sessions and I'd be so happy because she would like get it. And Elliott would get it too, but Elliott would do just like he's doing. He'd be like, he'd do like this. Well, that makes sense. And then we kind of move on. But you hit it right on the head because when we got married 33 years ago, I didn't know I was going to be in ministry.
Yeah.
Right? So you could argue that I did not know my purpose when we got married.
Yeah.
Right? And so you hear all these people talk about don't connect with a man who doesn't know his purpose. Well, who in the world knows their purpose at 20 years old? How many people really know their purpose? And to your point,
That's
Sydney,
right, because people change.
and then it changes.
Yes, that's right.
Right? And so once again, for those of you guys who haven't heard my story, go back to season 1 and you'll hear it. But because I met Elise at 12 years old, I wasn't even trying to think about what my purpose was. And so my looking through the word of God to understand marriage, like if I ever heard a preacher, they may have said it, but it went right over my head because at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, I'm not thinking purpose. So I'm just going to the Bible to see what it says. And so, but huge point you just made, Sid, is the fact that Elliott can have a purpose, Sydney can have a purpose, but there is a purpose to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point as well, I think when you said that oftentimes it can be construed that the man has the purpose and the purpose of the woman is to support the man's purpose.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and by the way of the world's construct today, that would make it nearly impossible for people to get married.
Yeah.
Because especially for black women are more educated and higher earners than any other sector.
Yeah, that's a huge topic today. And I think it's just, I don't want to say pointless, because I think that would hurt some people's feelings because they're really having issues with this. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just that it's not the point. It's like a tiny little blip point over there. If it doesn't bother you, ignore it, keep going, And I don't think it's something to get stuck on. You just find someone who fits the direction and plane you're going on with that and keep it moving.
Yeah. But once again, the challenge is if you're asking the wrong question, how can you ever possibly get to the right answer? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for a love that will last forever, but you think it's tied to you having to have a purpose as a man, and is tied to your ability to submit to that man's purpose, right? Then how can you ever get to the proper finish line? Because that has you headed in a completely different direction.
Or even what the finish line is. So many people have different ideas of finish line.
Right.
Like, when you make the millions of dollars and you retire at 40, what's your idea of retirement at 40 versus this person? And if they're different, have you thought about how that works?
Right. It's so often when I have people come to me and they're coming from that premise that, the man has to have the purpose and the woman needs to support that purpose, I always ask them this question. Okay, what is it that your wife can do for you that you can't hire somebody to do?
That's a good question.
If you have that thought process that they're supposed to support your purpose, then what are they doing different to you that you can't just hire somebody to do? And if they really begin to think about it, then it begins to break down that entire premise of what they believe the purpose of marriage is, kind of thing. And so now, Elliott, let's get you into the conversation from the perspective of purpose. What did you think the purpose of marriage was before we started talking?
And to me, the marriage thing was always like a partnership, right? So in a partnership, right, or let's say a team, for example, you got different people playing different positions, right? In this case, it's only a team of two, but you guys both have strengths and weaknesses, right? You both have ways of supporting each other that the other one can't. So this one can support this person in a way that they just can't support themselves, you know? So it's kind of like build off of each other, right? So in my mind, it's always been a partnership. You know, sometimes there's going to be struggles. This person's going to be struggling with something. You should be able to support that person, right? This person's going to struggle with something. This other person who's your partner should be able to support you, right? In various ways, you know, there's various ways. So there might be something like, for example, maybe there's something she wants to do, right? Like, for example, she wants to be an entrepreneur of some sort, right? Currently, I am doing whatever is, you know, I can realistically do, you know, that's not going to put us at a detriment to support that, right? And then one day when she's making millions of dollars,
Exactly.
she'll, you know, do something for me or whatever, like maybe support me in some kind of way. Maybe I want to, you know, do something, you know, that type of thing. It's just, it's kind of like a thing where it's just like, oh, this person can help me improve in some ways, right? If I take the time to listen to what they're saying, right? If I consider the maybe constructive criticism I'm getting, maybe it'll shed some light on some things I can do to self-improve, or maybe these improvements might like spill over to other things like my career or whatever else it is, right? So, but it has to go both ways, though, right? That type of stuff.
Yeah, see, I love it. When you talk about the partnership piece, it really is talking about that principle of caring for each other's heart, kind of thing. And once again, I don't, you know, and I say this all the time, that we were doing a lot of what I went through with you in coaching, but I didn't know that I knew it.
You didn't know in regards to the calling it the healing.
Right. I didn't like what I just heard Elliott say in terms of it's a partnership and we are there for each other. We support each other. That's probably what I would have sounded like 30 years ago if someone had asked me that kind of a question, not being able to flesh it out. And so part of the reason why I have done the podcast and I'm doing the coaching that I'm doing is because I believe that if all of us knew from day one that the purpose of marriage is to help heal each other's heart and that we could each have our own purposes, and like you say, it would ebb and flow, you know, at certain times it might be heavy on your purpose, on another time it might be heavy on my purpose, kind of thing. But ultimately, first things first, we're going to help each other get better in areas of our lives. And at the end of the day, we're going to have each other, kind of thing. I think that if people knew that from the jump, from the start, marriages would be so much more successful and could get through so many more tough times.
Or like, you know, some men might just be going through life, maybe they're floating through life, right? And they're single, whatever. They're just like, you know, going to work, hanging out with their buddies, whatever, right? And then let's say they just happen to meet someone, right? They're like, oh, this person right here is like, let's just say they're a moral person. They're like, oh, I want to marry this person, right? And it's like, I want to marry this person. So let's say, you know, you get to know each other. It's like, oh man, I need to get a better job, right? Or whatever. So like, basically what I'm saying is like the existence of this other person that like you're seeing your future with in your head could inspire you to just, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And here's when I have to do coaching around that kind of thing, I have to separate this deal in terms of, that whole notion that he completes me or she completes me. No, they can inspire you, but they don't complete you. And you're exactly right. When I have a person who is in my corner, who is caring for my heart, it inspires me and it motivates me to want to do more, to want to be more, kind of thing. And I will tell you, one of the tough lessons that I had to learn as a life coach was there were times that I would meet couples, and they were either the guy or the girl, and they really just wanted a good 9-to-5 that would pay them enough money to put a little money aside, to do their community service aside, take care of their bills, and enjoy their family. And that's what they wanted. And then they wanted time with their family. And there was a couple of times I tried to talk them into vision. I tried to talk them into, but no, you're doing what is right for you. You got a good, steady job. You do your 9-to-5, you work hard, and then you come home and you deposit all you have into your family, kind of thing. And I had to realize that even I had started to kind of fall into the whole necessity for purpose, kind of thing. When some people, their purpose is to get a good, healthy 9-to-5 and then make deposits into their wives, to their children, and to their grandchildren. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And actually, probably more right with that than we probably have taken time to think about, kind of thing.
I would say even that it sounds like just, like mellow. And it sounds exciting to say, oh, I have the perfect purpose that will make 6 figures, right? But when you have a 9-to-5 that's steady and you have time to deposit into your family and your relationships, that just allows time for healing things. And maybe there were issues or traumas, or you just want to create a healthy, you just have so much more energy to put into those relationships. So I think that's just as valuable. It's just different.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elliott.
I was going to say, there is a negative side to that too, as far as the whole inspiration thing, because some people, depending on how that whole situation goes, they can kind of get fixated on this. Let's say it doesn't work out. It didn't work out because of this. I need to get more money, or I need to do this more. I need to do that more. And then they just fixate on that. And then they expect that to be the thing that gets them the next person, right? But it's that turns into a whole snowball.
Right. That's like a GPS system that doesn't have the right connection to the system, and it keeps sending you in the wrong direction, kind of thing. And so that's why I think it was so why when I do my coaching, it's so important to really come to an agreement on what we believe the purpose of marriage is. And so now let's move to the individual sessions, because both of you guys said something very interesting to me in the individual sessions. Do you guys remember specifically anything about your individual sessions?
Yes, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so I'll tell you that both of you communicated how you guys were serious about a relationship that moved to marriage, but your primary concern was, would the other person stay? Would they? If hard times came, would they make it through the storms? And it was so refreshing that you guys in the individual sessions, and I'm paraphrasing because you guys didn't say this necessarily directly, but in individual sessions, y'all both are said, "Oh, I'm in this for the long haul. I need to know they're in it for the long haul. I want to know they're in it for the long haul. I'm willing." And I was like, man, this session is going to be so easy. I was like, and then the other thing that was really funny, and we got to talk about this, is both of you guys said that you felt like you had been reverse catfished.
Yeah.
Both. I was like, are y'all cheating? Are y'all taking notes and passing it to each other, kind of thing? So tell Elise a little bit about that whole reverse catfish thought process or feeling.
All right, well, you go first. Her explanation is going to be longer.
There's multiple levels to it, right? So on one hand, I kind of did part of this to myself, right? Because we were both looking for someone really close to each other or to ourselves. And I got bored with who was around me on these apps. So I was like, oh, what's out here? Then I forgot because I have ADD, to put it back. And so I didn't realize that he was way further than I was comfortable with. And so then after we started talking, I was like, oh man, you're so far away. But I got you for now, right? But then we meet in person, and I realized that, oh, your pictures do not really show how attractive you are. Wait,
Wait,
I think-
Elliot, you didn't have a picture with the tank top on. You didn't do that.
like this was there before.
I'm in decent shape. I didn't want anybody like looking at me like, oh, he's in shape or whatever. Right? I'm not
He's
trying
neat.
to. It's not like I'm not putting out I'm not trying to put out superficial vibes out there. So all my photos were just like shoulder up basically,
Or like a winter snow coat.
or yeah, you couldn't really like it was nothing revealed in there, right? You can generally, if you're tall enough, that's good enough usually, So my height's on there, and I think I undersold my height just slightly because I think I'm actually like 5'11" right now. I think I put 5'10" on there.
No, you're taller than 5'11".
Yes, to you.
You're closer to 6. You're closer to 6'1".
I also think he's 6 foot. He's just so kind.
No, he's definitely over 6 feet.
Thank you. I think at least 6 foot.
Yeah, you're definitely over 6 feet.
I think I'm 5'11".
I'm admittedly a highest, but I'm sure.
No,
Okay. All right.
I'm 5'10". I'm 5'10", and you're at least 2 inches taller than me. At least.
Okay.
There you go.
So okay. So once again, we're arguing about the reverse catfish.
Yeah.
Which most guys would say I'm 6'4", and they come back with something else. But now, Elliott, I want you to tell what your concern was about Sydney's pictures.
When I saw Sydney's photo, I saw a little message. I get the little thumbnail in there, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is my message." You can't see what they look like in those little thumbnails. So I went to her profile before I even replied or anything. So I was like, "Let's see what this person's about." So I go flipping through the photos. I was like, "Okay, she's kind of cute," but also there's a little bit of a, a little cautious because all you could see was shoulder up. Right, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but with women, it's a different ball game because I've seen some women with very just slender necks. Not they show shoulder, but if they shoulder, and it's it just doesn't match the rest of them. So it's just okay. So if that's not something you're into, and you get there and all you saw was this, and it's oh,
Oh dear.
Listen, that whole reverse catfish kind of thing. And I love what you said, Elliott, is that you're not trying to overstate, and you think just doing the chest high is sufficient, kind of thing. I'm not trying to thirst trap you.
I was
because I can see her shoulders up. So, but also I knew that there was a possibility that she was being modest, and everything was perfectly fine. But it was a gamble I was going to take. I read the profile. I was like, okay, I like this profile. I saw she had a kid. I was like, that's not a deal breaker. I was like, okay. And then I said, all right, let me just talk to this person. Let me see what she's about, right? So we started talking, and we met up, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was good. It was,
I will say I also catfish because I'm not that modest. I just also am aware. So I did also say, hey, just so you know, sometimes I wear what I want to wear. It's not a problem.
She means
so uncode that for me. What does it mean that you wear what you want to wear?
Sometimes I just like wearing clothes that might be a little more revealing.
Gotcha.
But for me, it's because I like what I want to wear. Or now that you're my husband, I'll wear it for you. But if I want a crop top, 5 days out of the week, will that bother you?
I gotcha. Good. So I love that. I love that about the individual sessions that I did with you guys, and I thought, okay, this is going in a good direction. So then we did covenant. We talked about covenant. What do you guys remember about covenant? Say it again, Sid.
Basically, that it's not covenant. It's not a contract where you bring your own lawyer to say, oh, let's make sure we sign the things that I need. And if I don't get this, then you gotta go. It's not self-serving. It's the opposite, where you're signing your life away and saying, I'll die for you. Even if it's not comfortable, basically. Like, obviously within healthy boundaries, but it's more of a giving thing instead of what's in it for me.
Yeah, you hit it right in the head. It's about giving, not getting, kind of thing, and understanding that covenant is about. And I know the Bible talks about, we should die for one each other, but really it challenges us to live for one another, to live for each other, kind of thing. And so yeah, that hit it right in the head. So now you said it cleared up some things, Sid. Did it make you feel better? Did it open your eyes to things? What is there anything that kind of stood out after you started getting that new understanding of covenant?
I think, I don't know if I said this then, but I think looking back now,
Right.
because Elliott at times is a man of so few words, I'm always like, what do you, like, it can't be that. It can't be that. Like, there must be more, right? It's like, pretty simple. And so I always kind of felt like, how do you know if I'm the right person if I feel like you don't have enough details to ask for in the first place? And so when we got to that part, what he shared and what he was believing, just made me feel like, oh, you do actually know what you want, because there were words to put with that now. Whereas before, you just be like, oh yes, I want this, this, and this, and I'm here for this, the end. And I'm like, but I need more girly details, right? He's like, I said it.
Yeah. And I love it because after the solo sessions, like part of what I have to do in the coaching sessions is to kind of get a feel for your temperaments. So, and this might sound crude, so that I can figure out if you're lying or if you're playing games and all that kind of.
Yeah.
And so after the solo sessions, I realized, no, Elliott is just a real matter of fact guy. But if he says it, he's not frivolously saying it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was able to kind of ascertain that. And it was funny, even at the wedding kind of thing, because when you talked to Lion, you were like, and Lion, I'm here for the rest of your life. And then we just went back to the deal. And so once again, if you don't know Elliott, you want some more frill to it. But if you know Elliott, you go like, oh.
I didn't know Elliott because I kind of got a sense of that in the beginning. It's just being a person who had dated in the real world. No one else operates that way.
Yeah.
So it was always, oh, if you're serious, this is great. I'm keeping you forever. But how do I know you're real, kind of thing?
Yeah.
So that was just a way to kind of bounce something really heavy off of him to see if he was like for real.
Yeah. So now here's the big question I want to ask before we get into the covenant one. Do you have any questions?
No, I thought, are we talking covenant?
We are talking covenant.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Before we talk submission.
Okay.
But the real question I want to know is, when did each of you guys know, oh, I love this person?
Good question. So I'm way more impulsive and I'm undecided until I know for sure that I like something, but it's generally like immediately. So when I first saw him on the app, I was kind of just following some like podcast advice of like, oh, if you're not ugly, just swipe right and see what happens, right? And then he wasn't overly thirsty or avoidant, messaging, so cool, we keep going. But then on the first conversation, it was just really like nice and calm, but he was just like his like upfront matter of fact self, where he just shows up as himself pretty much immediately, which I know now. But then I was like, oh, is this for real or what? Because so many people don't do that, right? So then I was like, you're really hot in person and this is real, like this whole personality thing, you can stick around forever. That wasn't a love thought, it was just so you could stay in my life thought. Right? And then in person, I was like, oh, this is even better. And there were a couple moments that really spoke to things I had experienced or thought about before, where I was like, whoa, that's a little uncanny.
Uh-huh.
Probably, I don't know, January. I was from October to January thinking, oh, this can be a thing. And that's also when we kind of officially became a couple instead of just dating each other.
Gotcha. So you knew you loved him in January.
I wouldn't have said it that way.
I know you wouldn't have said it that way, but you know, and here's the reason why I want to kind of hone in on this is because if you're not careful, that whole dating through the dating apps, you can lose sight of the fact, and it can feel very transactional, right?
Yeah.
And so, and for just reason, you know, because there's folks out there that can play games and are you for real? And
some people really just want transactions.
Yeah. And so all of that and all that still, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that through all of this process, like there was genuine love that I saw almost immediately. But I don't know that you guys could see it in the framework of the Word of God.
No, because I still kind of don't know what you mean. We're just kind of existing with each other. It's hard for me to know what you are looking at, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think once again, that's the other thing that I want to say too, is you know, when love is there, like you can see it, but you don't know that people can see it on you, kind of thing. And so there is this very rational thought process that you go through, but like both of you guys said, both of you guys think you're attractive to each other. Like both of you guys, when y'all walk in the room, y'all like what y'all see. That has a big part of it, but I also believe that with the outward appearance, there is also an inward connection that happens too.
Yeah.
Because we see a whole lot of attractive people that if I spend 20 minutes with them, I can't wait to get right. That kind of thing. So that
I have a question before I forget, because with Lion, so when did he say, okay, did he come to you saying, Mom, I really like Elliott?
No, but my kid is very particular.
Mm-hmm.
He's related to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't like you, it's immediate.
Okay.
And he's always just kind of not liked people I'm uncomfortable around without me saying anything about. So I can kind of just gauge where he's at, even if he's in a tantrum. Like I can kind of tell what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just tell he was comfortable.
Okay.
And they have some things in common where it just made it easy to see, like, okay, are they getting along? Like, does Lion respect him, even if he tries him sometimes? And just those really solid baseline things.
Okay. And I know I'm probably going off a tangent, but in regards to, so did you guys have a conversation in regards to, okay, him calling him dad, and then the disciplining of, okay, now he's in your life. So if he says no, that means no, you know. So did you guys talk through that, or?
Those conversations definitely happen. Some of those conversations happen like really early on too. It's like, all right, so when we get to this stage, like,
that's true.
How am I going to be integrated into like a whole system? Because she has like a slightly, I want to say like a traditional way of parenting when it comes to some things. So you don't want to just come in there like, you know, in the military, every time like a new commander came in, they want to shake things up. Like, we're not doing this word anymore. And then next thing you know, like 3 months later, they're doing the same thing that was happening before they got there. But anyway, I didn't want to, you know, I've never had that approach with anything really. So I was kind of like, how do I make a smooth transition into me doing this? And then like, if there's some things that I see that could be improved, like how are we going to integrate those things? Basically?
Right. Yeah.
I will say, when we first met, like because first we went on like through the app, then we had a Zoom date, which we're so far apart. So it's like, let's not waste gas if this isn't going anywhere. But a first in-person date, I kind of threw out like, oh, would you want your kids to play sport? Because I've noticed, as a person who has a kid who's a boy, men always just like subconsciously throw like, oh, would you let me help your kid play the sport that I love? And I'm like,
Yeah.
gross.
Okay.
You don't even know my kid. And then they'll weirdly throw in the part of like somehow how they want to discipline them. And it's like this weird nervous tick guys do by spewing that out. And I'm like, you're skipping so many steps to like disciplining. How are you going to help him grow and learn? I just felt like it was always really immature of them to approach it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something about where I got that a lot. So by the time I met Elliott, I was like, had a few questions to kind of gauge where he was with kind of overdoing of making some little male child a mini unhealthy version of themselves.
Okay.
And then I found out that just Elliott had a similar, well, not similar, but an upbringing where his mom met somebody and how he did and didn't want things. And that actually helped me more than it would have just figuring it out on my own. So
That's
the conversations we had, like Elliott had a good foundation of what was needed to fit in.
Yeah, I wanted just to get that in there because I know it's important because I didn't want to forget about Lion. Because so
Yeah, wonderful. So Elliott, when did you know that you loved her?
Right, we're getting to know each other. She's asked me some very interesting questions, like early on. I was just like, this is an interesting interaction, right? I kind of want to see where this is going to go, right? You know, I could tell she was an intelligent person once I liked her. In fact, I will say the first time I talked to her on the phone, right, because I will be very blunt here, okay? I'm going to be honest. So she's black, right? I'm black. But where I grew up, like, people talk a certain way, right? And based off the way they talk, you can kind of get an idea of what their mentality is like, or, you know, you get like a certain impression about it, right? And I'll pick one way about that. Like when she was, I think, did we talk on the phone before we did the Exam? I think we did.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we did, because I was wondering, like, that was one of the thoughts I had. When we talked on the phone, she just sounded very nice on the phone. And she had, you know, she spoke, you know, the way that I would want her to speak, basically. You know what I mean? This is the first impression.
I love you keep trying to keep it nice.
we understand, Elliott.
Yeah. What word can we use to get him off the hook? What?
I mean, she was very articulate. She was able to.
She sounded like she had been someplace before.
Well, she sounded educated. Let's put it that way. Okay. So anyway, and our conversations were interesting, right? So she's bringing up all these points. I like the bluntness because I do better with that sometimes. It's like, you know, sometimes I can be a little blunt, right? So if you come to me and say, hey, this is a problem, right? It's like, oh, okay, I didn't notice that. What's going on, right? We can have a conversation about it. I need like somebody who can do that, and she can do that. You know, I mean, she's pretty much, you know, or like.
I feel like Elliott can't answer this question because he wouldn't naturally be like, oh, I love you, which could be off-putting. I had to learn. That's his norm.
Wait a minute. So anyway, getting to know her, right? Getting to know her, the type of person she is, and whatnot, and our interactions and everything. It's kind of like this is a solid person that you know I can continue on with, basically, right? And through that forward movement, you kind of appreciate the person more and more and more. In my opinion, okay, so love isn't like a bundle of emotions, right? It's not like the butterflies people always talk about.
Description he just gave right now is basically like when he figured that out, that equates my version of the feeling for him. Without like my version of the flowery words.
Well, what am I willing to do for this person, right? You know, how long am I willing to do that thing? How committed am I to those ideas, right? Or whatever it is. I think that, or I came to the conclusion that she was worth the time, effort, and whatever else you want to put in that category, right? And when did that happen? I don't know. All right, but somewhere between when we met and before we decided to get married.
Okay, so I was there.
I can't tell you when.
Watch this.
There was a distinct like click for me that made me very uncomfortable. because before
Wait. It was a very distinct click that made you very uncomfortable.
yes, like uncomfortable. Because
Okay.
before this, Elliott was just like, "You're cool. I'm here. This is a good time. Like, this is cool. But like, if you want to go do something else, never see me again. Okay, cool. Like that. Like he's just so laid back in himself and comfortable in that, where it wasn't necessarily that he wasn't pursuing me, but he wasn't actively like in my face with it either. He was just like solidly there as like a good, kind person. And it was more of me like, oh, I like you, right? And so on the third day, I got in the car and immediately his whole like body language and just like air of, hey, how you doing? I was like, oh no. Like I could just tell that he was like way more into me. And it wasn't like an even into me thing. It was just like he had settled into this like permanence of comfortability. I was like, oh, do I like you like that? It was just this moment of making me step back and be like, oh wait, do I like? Whoa, like what is this?
Elliot,
And
do you remember the moment she's talking about?
he still doesn't remember that moment.
I don't know. I mean, there was no like thing where I thought to myself, today I'm going to relax around Sydney. That didn't happen. So it was probably so. Usually, if I'm what most likely happened is through our initial interactions. At some point, I just came to the conclusion that like, okay, we're going to move on to whatever, right? Just maybe subconsciously, right? I don't know.
It was definitely subconsciously, and how he was in that moment is exactly how he was now. So it's never like he was like, "Oh, I love you," and then he relaxed into this married person. Like the married version I have now is the version I got that moment in the car, where it was like, "I'm uncomfortable now." Because I didn't sign up for this early, but also you seem like it isn't that. But what is this? I personally think that's where you settled into it.
I love that because love is a decision we make.
Yeah.
Right? We have attractions all the time.
Yeah.
We can be aroused all the time.
That's the word I need, decision.
But the love, you start to make different decisions when love kicks in. Now, once again, it started happening for me at 12 years old. I didn't know I was doing it because of love. But you couldn't, and I know that to anybody, it looks like a kid who's got puppy love. But I still know what that was. And what you just expressed about the shift in Elliott, I remember with Elise. Like, you know, Elise, when we were dating, she'll admit she was tough on everybody that tried to come to her. And you know, and I liked that to some degree. I liked the fact that I had to work a bit for it. But then I do remember when she kind of exhaled for me. And I could see that she let me into another level. And I was like, ooh, she might really like me. Now I didn't feel uncomfortable. I got excited, but I understand what you're saying, Sid, in terms of that. Oh, wait a second, he just turned the corner. Am I ready to turn that corner too? And so,
I actually don't know when I turned that corner because it wasn't then.
Well, so this will lead us up. This will lead us up to the real conversation that I'm sure that you guys I can't wait to have. So the last session was about submission. Anything you guys remember about the submission session?
Well, I know that with the submission thing, we talked about some things that for a lot of people would be like, oh, I've never heard of that before, you know, like from the man's perspective, but I was kind of already aware of that. So we kind of like touched the base and like refreshed some of the things that I was aware of, but I think there was some extra stuff too. But I don't actually remember specifically what those extra things were.
Yeah, and that's good. That I can. I'm sure if I say a couple of key sentences, it'll probably jog up some stuff. But Sydney, did anything stand out for you?
Yes and no. It's kind of this thing where I get so even keel in who and how he is that it wasn't new to get or understand that his understanding of submission was what you were saying. It was just
Right.
comforting. And that it's not so much that I have to bow down at his feet in submission. It's more that we are both submitted to God. And if we choose covenant marriage, we're submitted to that. And through that, that's where the submission goes. And after that, if you want to add some man be submitted to woman, woman be submitted to man, it really just fits into how your own construct works. And if you want more of that being man leads, great, you know?
They hit it right on the head. And so the whole, excuse me, the whole key to the submission was first understanding our need to submit to God. And once again, submitting to God is doing our best to submit to his word. And when none of us ever get that completely right, like all of us we have some place in the word that we're struggling with, kind of thing. But once you understand that, what you find is that your arguments with each other become a little bit easier, because then it's not you trying to get your way or them trying to get their way, but it's about you guys trying to identify what's the word of God say and how do we line up with that. So then that team concept comes back in. How do we come together to do what the word says?